I'm talking to Douglas Kennedy about his 12th novel, The Heat of Betrayal. Just first off, can you tell us a little bit about the book and how you sort of arrived at writing it and what influenced you with the story?
The novel is a modern-day adventure story that turns into a nightmare, and it's set in modern Morocco. It's about a couple. It's narrated by a woman named Robin, who's in her early 40s. She was a one-time journalist who retrained as an accountant because of the state of journalism these days. She's gotten involved with a client, a man named Paul, who is in his late 50s. Paul is an artist. He also is a professor of art at a university in Buffalo, where they live, which is a sort of nowhere city in upstate New York. And he's promised her a baby, and she's just turned 40. Their marriage has hit a lot of bumps. As an accountant, she saw his records and saw that he was a man who was quite irresponsible with money, but it's a very sexual relationship. It's a second chance. She wants it, even though she's always seen from the beginning he has difficulties. They're in Morocco for the summer, where they're trying to repair their marriage, and where he once taught. Things are beginning to fuse amidst the kind of effervescent strangeness of Morocco. I think that's a good expression for it. They're staying in a medieval walled city called Essaouira on the Atlantic coast. And then, by accident, she discovers a secret, a betrayal. And she leaves evidence of this on the bed of their hotel room and disappears off to the beach in shock. And when she comes back, the room is in chaos. There's blood everywhere, and Paul has disappeared. What happens next? You'll have to read the book. It's a novel which is very much, I wanted to write a novel about the unknowingness of other people, especially those with whom you're most intimate. I think that is an ongoing sort of source of interest for me, is how well can you ever know somebody else? How well can you ever know yourself, for that matter? I wanted to write a modern adventure story set in a modern Arab country, which is caught between the mythic and the contemporary.
The fact that it's set in Morocco, I felt it really added to the kind of mystery of it and the sort of fish out of water, that kind of theme to it. Your novels kind of cross genres quite frequently, and it's normally romance and thriller. Is that something that you try to do like consciously, or?
Yeah. I would never call them romance. Romance is, there's almost a pejorative sense to that word romance.
Kind of cliche.
I think I've always written about couples because I have been married, I'm remarried now, I've had relationships, many, and basically also most of us at one time or another live as a couple. We do. I mean, that's just, how we're programmed.
Yeah, the norm kind of thing.
The norm, straight or gay, whatever. We all live as a couple at a certain point. And forming a life with somebody else is one of the hardest things we'll ever do. Why is that? Because I think, there is a solitariness to the human condition. And also, another thing as well, I think, everyone's in the middle of a gigantic struggle, usually with themselves, one way or another. So how do you do that with another person? I think one of the reasons why my novels have gained such a huge international readership is I tell very compelling stories, but I'm also dealing on a certain level in a reality that people can relate to. So even though this is set in Morocco, this is a woman in her early 40s who had a very unhappy, very asexual first marriage to a man who was very unsettled. This is a second chance, even though the man is almost 20 years older. The question of maternity for this woman is there. It's sort of that now or never moment for a woman, whether she can have a baby or not. And the problems that exist with a couple with money. Never underestimate, and I know this from sad personal experience, the role that money plays in a relationship. I mean, if you talk to anyone who works with couples, not that I have, but I mean, if you do, you know that sex and money are the two big issues in a relationship. So I think I bring that all to bear. I've never written a romance in my life. I mean, my last novel, 5 Days, is a brief encounter story, but it's
much more about the story rather than being constrained by a genre.
Absolutely, and the other thing about 5 Days, it's not a very happy tale. But it's very realistic. It's about two people with the chance for a change in their life, and the gentleman completely blows it. He runs back to his unhappiness. She changes, but she does it on her own. That's not romantic. That's realistic.
Yeah. When you're sort of approaching those real sort of flawed characters, are you kind of concerned that they're not portrayed in an idyllic way and you're kind of worried about how readers would see them, or do you think that that kind of helps, that people think I can relate to that?
I've often said, you know, that again, another aspect of my writing is it does feel real. I hope, anyway.
Yeah, it does.
It does feel real. This is not invented, and these are people who are as mixed up as the rest of us. I've always had the theory that basically everyone has pathology. Everyone has pathology. Some pathology is lighter than others. Some of it's very dark. And you have to decide at the beginning, when you are beginning to get involved with somebody, and if it's looking like it might become something kind of more long-term or permanent, whether you can handle that person's pathology, as they have to decide that about you. So fundamentally, for me, I mean, in this novel, Robin basically, she knows this man has issues, as they would say in California, but she always wanted to fall in love with an artist.
Aspects of Paul kind of remind her of her father as well.
That was exactly my next point. And also, there is, as a Freudian would say, the transferential thing. Even after Paul betrays her, and it's a horrible betrayal, and she starts trying to track him down, you know, she's basically trying to save him from himself. And her father was very much a mirror image of Paul. He was a businessman who went from job to job, was feckless, could never hold anything down. They were always running out on the rent. But she adored him. Her mother was a very cold, clinical person. I think that's another reason why readers have a connection with my fiction.
I've been asking quite heavy questions. I just thought I'd finish on a slightly lighter one.
Good questions.
Two of your novels have sort of been the basis of motion pictures. If you were to cast Robin and Paul, who would you pick?
If it was a French version of The Heat of Betrayal, or Mirage as it's called in France, I would definitely cast Marion Cotillard, who I think is actually just one of the great actresses of our time. Beyond that, there are a lot of American actresses who would be extraordinary in it, from Robin.
Well, she could answer
she
both.
She can do both, you know. Robin Wright or someone like that. I mean,
I could see that.
Robin Wright would be very good. Reese Witherspoon would be a possibility. Julia Roberts, for that matter. There are a lot of different actresses who could be very strong in this. You know, in terms of Paul, my ideal choice, and he was in a movie of mine already, is Ethan Hawke.
Yeah.
I think he'd be marvelous, and he's a brilliant actor, and he's a really interesting guy as well. He's one of the smarter people I've ever met. We'll see what happens. Yeah. I mean, the cinema for a novelist, it's like the casino. You know, occasionally you win.
Well, that's all
well, thank you.
that I've got. But Douglas's book is out now, so that's The Heat of Betrayal.